Good reminder. All righty. I hope everyone can hear me. If you can't, let us know. My name is Brittany. For everyone in person, I introduced you to Tom, but it seems like you're all very well familiar. For those who are joining us, thank you so much. My name is Brittany Pilgrim. I'm the program coordinator for the Germantown Library. We're very grateful to have Tom Shannon joining us, who's a part of the waterfront committee, but also our town historian, who's going to talk to us a little bit about water chestnuts and what we're doing to try to keep them under control here in Germantown.
All right, thanks a lot, Brittany. Thanks for coming out tonight, the hardy souls who are here in the chairs and everyone who's watching. What I'd like to talk about tonight is something that's really affected the town of Germantown over the last 20 years or so, give or take. The water chestnut infestation in Germantown stretches for almost 2 miles from about the old site of Sharp's Landing. This is towards the middle end of Sharp's Landing Road, all the way south of Cheviot Land. This infestation reaches almost 1,000 feet out into the river. So well out into the body of the Hudson River. This blocks off access to Lower Main Street, which you see here on this first picture. Ice House Landing, which is another town-owned property just a little bit south of here, and Cheviot Park, which is another town-owned park and boat launch down at the southern end of town, right at Cheviot Road. The water chestnut infestation here in Germantown really took off somewhere around 2005. Into the 1980s, there was widespread use of a pesticide called 2,4-D, which is often used on farm fields. It was used openly in aquatic treatments up until the middle 1980s. It was used extensively in Tivoli South Bay, about 5 miles south of us. That had a notable water chestnut infestation going back several decades before the 1980s, and was treated regularly by the DEC that had it pretty well contained to Tivoli South Bay. And fast forward a generation, once they stopped using that pesticide on that infestation, it slowly kind of made its way out from Tivoli South Bay, and it has slowly taken over every shallow part of the Hudson River, the tidal Hudson River, and probably the parts of the river north of us that are basically a canal at this point. The use of that pesticide was discontinued in, I think it was 1985. And by 2005, we start to see quite a few water chestnuts in these shallow areas. Germantown does not have any deep water harbor. The closest thing to deep water harbor that we have on the Germantown waterfront is the landing at North Germantown. There's historical reasons for that, but I think I've talked about them at length in other talks. So Germantown starts to be really heavily impacted starting around 2005. I had moved away from Germantown in early 2005. The kayaking craze was in full swing then, and I bought a kayak around that time and was kayaking around the Germantown waterfront, no problem. In 2003, 4, 5 timeframe, I went off to college in Binghamton, New York, and just a couple of years later came back to visit in the summertime and couldn't kayak on the Germantown water. Couldn't get in or out of Lower Main Street anymore. Couldn't get in or out of Cheviot Park in the summertime anymore. So this has been an ongoing problem here for 20 years. Yeah, almost half of our Germantown waterfront has been blocked off in the summertime for the last 20 years. So Kathy's husband, Martin, a gentleman named Kai Landau, and much more recently myself, have been very active in trying to manage the water chestnut infestation and at the very least provide access. Cut these channels that you see. Martin and Kai put together a couple of different iterations of a cutter boat. There's, I believe, we're on the third generation of cutter boat at this point. I'll show you some pictures here in a bit, but this picture is from last June. This is late June after we cut all of our channels. I'll show you a map in a little bit. But this is Lower Main Street, the landing at Lower Main Street, as seen from the roof of the old Hudson Valley Cold Storage, the massive brick building at the bottom of Lower Main Street. So this is a picture of my son, who's my third born. So this is, I know the date of this exactly because my wife was in the hospital with her fourth child. So this is August 2021. And that's Cheviot, the docks at Cheviot Park, just completely blocked out by the water chestnut infestation. Kai had done a little bit of work with the small cutter boat. His previous cutter boat was only 3 feet wide. Early in the season, he did his best to provide some access to the docks there. But this is how Cheviot Park looks in the summertime. If we don't take any action of our own, this is what our town, one of our 2 town boat launches looks like from early June through early October, mid-October even. Same day, this is August 2021. This is Ice House Landing. This is another, not an official town park, but a town property between Cheviot Landing and Lower Main Street. And you can see there, the wisp of the line that Kai had cut through there in May or June. By August, it's completely swamped back in. And the water chestnuts are so thick that it looks like you could almost walk out to the middle of the river on that mat. If any of you have ever tried to paddle through this, it's impossible. Even in a canoe, kayak, any kind of boat, it's just impassable. There's just no way to get through it. And that's also from Ice House Landing. That's looking south towards Cheviot Landing there. You can see it's 1,000 feet wide or more. Goes way out into the middle of the river and just completely cuts off access for all of the months that you would want access, except for striper season. Okay, so those are pictures from 2021. 2022, this is the last year where Kai was working just with his 3 foot wide cutter boat. So you can see the channel that he cut here. This is, we affectionately call this the intercoastal. And this is basically our logging road. We also call it sometimes. And this, at first we just provided access from Lower Main Street down to Cheviot. But nowadays we use it. We've extended this road and completely tried to cut off the large scale infestation. So we basically tried to build a stream within, or a creek almost similar to Hallenbeck Creek. That cuts right behind Rogers Island underneath the Rip Van Winkle Bridge. That's kind of the same concept we're going for here, is to try to provide some natural flow, restore some natural flow to the inner recesses of the Germantown waterfront. So this was largely what we did as a waterfront committee for 8, almost 10 years before we had the cutter boat that we have now. We did a lot of hand pulling at Cheviot. This is tremendously labor intensive. Kathy is well aware. Donald has helped out, Eric's helped with those. I've done a lot. That's my canoe, one of my canoes, just completely full. There's enough room for me to sit in back, and then the whole front of the canoe is completely full of product. So, and you see everything I pulled that's in that canoe came from this area here, so it barely put a dent in what's there. So the interesting thing about the cutter boat is, we'll see in a moment, the sickle bar, it cuts the very top of the plant off, which alleviates the need to pull the entire plant. So in the canoe there, we've got the entire plant. We pulled up the entire root all the way down to the bottom, whereas the cutter boat just cuts the head off, kills the plant, and there's no need to harvest or pull out the entire rest of the plant. And we also try to get to it before it's as mature as the plant is in the photograph there. This is Kai, I believe this is the second generation cutter boat. That's Kai Landau I mentioned earlier. You see the cutter here. This is a smaller scale one. This is about 3 feet wide. He built a deck here to work off of. And it's the issue that we always have is, so we're cutting in this area, and then any material that is, gets through the cutter or gets around the cutter ends up in the prop of your boat. So that's something we battle all the time, especially as the plant matures and becomes larger. It's a battle to keep the prop from getting clogged up with the plant. So this was, I believe there's 2 years of this boat in regular use. This is what Kai and Martin would use to open up the area in front of their house so they could get their boats in and out. And Kai would come down and open the channel down to Cheviot Landing at least once. But with this small of a cutter, it's almost impossible to maintain the channels. So in late 2021, Kai, Martin, and 5 or 6, 7 other people, we all pooled our money together. People from Lower Main Street and Cheviot pulled our money together, bought this old lake party boat. I believe it's a 1985, 84, 85 model. And it doesn't look that nice anymore. Like, not that it looks nice in that photograph, but it doesn't look that nice anymore. I believe we paid $4,500 for this. Had a motor on it, equally as old, 84, 85 force motor, 85 horsepower, and worked very well for a year and a half. The motor died with me on the boat on July 4th of last year, and down right in front of Cheviot Park, the motor died. Luckily, the wind and the tide were blowing me back to the anchor point at Lower Main Street, and it floated back to the anchor point at Lower Main Street. But this was a big deal. We bought this at the tail end of 2022. This was July or August. We picked this up, took it for a test run off of Lasher Park in North Germantown. And you can see here we had a very generous anonymous donor donated the cutter there. You see the hydraulic lines, and this is the separate motor, 4-stroke motor that operates the cutter. And Kai and Martin engineered this in such a way that it hangs off the front of the boat, and you'll see in a few photographs here. So this is the well-worn boat launch at Cheviot Park that hasn't seen any love since I think 1979, 1980 or so. So we get our boat in here at Cheviot Landing. It's sometimes pretty tough, especially at low tide, to get this boat in and out. Generally speaking, we don't cut at low tide. We try to avoid it, especially around Cheviot. There's just so many hazards with the old causeway from 1911. The ruins of that are very dangerous, very treacherous, and very easy to crash into at low tide. And even at high tide, you have to be careful on Cheviot. So 2023, this is the first full year of the cutter boat. You see the arm system that Kai and Martin devised here. This is so that we can pull the cutter out, we push down on that bar and pull the cutter out of the water, or undo the hook and let it sit off the front of the boat. And you can see the teeth there. You don't want to put your fingers anywhere near these things, and you also really don't want to fall off the front of the boat while these things are exceptionally sharp. The hedge trimmers and a sickle bar behind it. So it really takes a lot of oomph to push this through the water chestnuts. This, I believe, is a photograph from the first day I helped Kai cut. So this is very early in the season in 2023. You can see the plants in the distance. They're very immature at this point. So when they're this immature, cutting has to occur at ebb tide or lower. So it's the exception to the rule. We can cut at low tide. As long as you're avoiding hazards, we cut at low tide when the plant is this immature. It's much easier. The smaller the plant is, the easier it is to push through it without stressing the boat. And this is another tool we picked up in 2023. This is what they call a lake rig. When this is effective for work from shore when the plant is mature. When the plant is not matured yet, it just slips right through the tines on the lake rig. So this is kind of early in the season. That's what I could get from the Cheviot dock. It's not worth it until later in the season. This is a view from my porch down in Cheviot, looking kind of northwest. Shows just the profound extent of the water chestnut infestation. This is in July, I believe. And you can see our channel. So in 2023, the big improvement was we had successfully kept that channel open all the way from Lower Main Street down to Cheviot for the first time. All previous years, we kept it open until like maybe late June or so. By July and August, completely closed back up. And it wasn't quite as thick. Yes, Commissioner.
What depth of water in the water chestnut pond?
So I believe at high tide, if the water is much deeper than like 12 or 14 feet roughly, that's when you get to water deeper than that, that's when you won't have any water chestnut. Unfortunately for us, most of the Germantown waterfront is that or shallower, especially around Chevy and Lower Main Street. We're talking, we're talking 2, 3, 4 feet deep for most of the water, from Chevy up towards Lower Main Street and beyond, really all the way to Sharp's Landing. And well out into the river.
High tide or low tide?
Low tide, we're talking 2 to 3, maybe 4 feet. Yeah, and there's sandbars too around Chevy. They have to watch out for.
So if the low tide gets down to nothing, they can't go there anymore,
Well, I've seen it. They'll grow. So the key for the water chestnut is if it's baking in the sun, that'll kill the plant. So you'll see sometimes on the old Chevy Causeway, as we've opened this up more and the tide helps us, the wind and the tide helps us maintain these channels. Any of the plant that ends up on the rocks during low tide, and then it's 90 degrees and blazing sun out, that will kill the plant because it's not in the water for 6 hours or roughly while the tide's out, and that'll just desiccate the plant and kill it. So 2023, this is really the year we're kind of learning what we can do. Having an 8 feet wide cutter and a much more powerful boat really helped us keep this channel and other channels actually open and accessible for smaller boats all through the summer. This is kind of a funny shot. So I believe Kai and Carrie Christian, who's on the town board, they went out cutting, and it was kind of a windy, kind of rainy, miserable, foggy kind of day. And they went to cut up the channel here, and they got in the fog, they got blown blown off to the side a little bit. So in 2023, there is just this little small channel that's one boat width wide, way far afield of the main channel that we were trying to cut. And we never got around to mowing all the rest of this in between. So that kind of stayed looking like that for most of the summer of 2023. This is the view from my porch again at Cheviot, looking down onto Cheviot Park. We really widened this here. If you're familiar with trying to get a boat out of Cheviot, anytime in the last 100 years or so, the old Cheviot Causeway started here near this cottonwood tree and extended 1,000 feet out into the river, out into deep water. So you could pull steamboats right up to the dock here. The causeway was a series of embankments and bridges trying to allow water flow in. They didn't build enough bridges into it, and the causeway was pretty much out of commission within 30 or 40 years. But the remnants of it are still there, and it causes sediment buildup on both sides. Really impacts the natural flow of the river there. And I think you could definitely argue that it contributes to the conditions that we have here, where these water chestnuts probably wouldn't have as hospitable conditions if the natural flow of the river was restored here. But this is what I tried to do in front of Cheviot Park, was open up this channel. So if you put your boat in at the launch here at Cheviot Park, you have to stay really close to shore here, get to the north side of the old causeway, and then go out. And if you go too far to the north here, you're going to hit sand. If you cut too close to the Cheviot Causeway, you're going to crash your boat into rocks, or there's old pilings that stick out at a cockeyed angle now. And it's very, very treacherous if you don't know what to look out for there. But this was all closed up in 2022. There was no way. And this is very, when you're down at river level, this is very wide here. Towards the end of the cutting season in 2023, I opened up this channel here. And the reason I did that is because everything that we'd cut from Main Street down to Cheviot Park, all of the cuttings, we're cutting the heads off the plants, and you'd end up with these huge clumps of water chestnut heads. And we didn't have any natural flow going through there yet. So it was all collecting, all the cutting was collecting right in front of Cheviot Park. And that's really where that's the public launch. So that's what we wanted to keep open. So what I did was I took the boat and cut this relief valve open here, so that at low tide, all the cuttings could blow out through that channel. And that's really helped. In 2024, we really emphasized cutting that and cutting a similar relief valve on the northern end near Sharp's Landing and Lower Main Street, so that we could try to restore some natural flow, and that has really helped us maintain the channels later into the summer. This is the beginning of the season in 2024. Like I said, it's very treacherous on the Cheviot Causeway, and if you notice, this arm is bent a little bit, and that's because in 2023, towards the end of the cutting season, I crashed the cutter boat into the Cheviot Causeway. It caught an old piling with this end of the cutter. It just barely nicked the cutter. The boat itself didn't hit the piling, but the front of the cutter, which hangs down about 1.5 feet into the water, caught just the very edge of a piling from the old Cheviot Causeway, and that wrenched this arm system pretty hard, and we had to rebuild it. This is the, like I said, at the beginning of 2024, our focus was we want to make this intercoastal road, our logging road, as wide as possible and restore as much natural flow as possible. And this is me cutting that, making it wider. The notable thing about the 2024 season was it was much easier to open this back up. So every year that we cut, we're reducing the number of plants that reach maturity, and every one of these plants can produce something like 14 of the seed pods. That each plant head, as it matures into July and August, produces 14 of these seed pods. These seed pods, when the plant rots in October, all of these seed pods fall to the bottom or get swept along shore, and they can lay dormant at the bottom of the river for 12 years and then produce a plant on the 12th year after laying dormant in the mud. So every year that we do this, we've been opening this channel. It makes the growth the following year is much thinner. So that's what we've noticed from 2022 into 23, and then especially 23 into 24. It really didn't take nearly as much effort to open this channel back up. So this is the map. I don't know if Kathy's ever seen this. This is so this is a map. You see Cheviot Park, and then going north, you see Ice House Landing. We have the outflow of the town sewer system, Lower Main Street. I've been talking about the Cheviot Causeway a little bit. The Cheviot blowhole is what allows all the cuttings to go out into the main channel, and so they're not clogged up in our intercoastal channel. Ice House Landing, I've been cutting a big section there so that people can fish. If people want to swim there, they can swim there. If people want to just hang out, take their boats, because we've really done a lot of work at Ice House Landing. It's another project of ours in the waterfront committee. It's a nice place to hang out in summertime. So we've made that area much bigger. Marina. Kai's wife is named Marina, so we call it Marina's Marina. And I've also, the parking lot started almost as an accident. That's my turnaround. When I'm cutting right next to the Cheviot Causeway. Towards the end of 2024, I actually expanded the parking lot and kind of cut off this little piece here. So I added a little shortcut from the parking lot into the main channel, the intercoastal here. And the Overington Drone Cemetery, that's where Martin's crashed 3 or 4 drones into the river over the years. This is an example. Before we cut the Cheviot blowhole, all of the cuttings would end up right in front of Cheviot Park, and just like basically dead grass, essentially collecting right in front of the park. So that's just underscores the importance of having that natural flow restored, the north-south flow during low tide and high tide. This is Ice House Landing. Like I said, we cut a big open swath right in front of Ice House Landing so that people can fish no problem from shore, and also just hang out there in the summertime. It's really, idyllic kind of spot to hang out in the summertime. And this picture is just an illustration of how much flow. So once we opened that intercoastal road all the way from Sharp's Landing down to Cheviot and restored some of that natural flow, it helped us maintain this. So in 2023, we didn't have both ends open so much. So we cut this, and then there's no natural flow helping us keep it clear. So the plants just close it back up much more easily. So this is how it worked out in 2024. This year, I'd like to make this road even a little bit wider. You'll see back here, you see some bare spot here. So I did closer, a little bit north of where this photo is, I did do a test patch. So I cut basically a football field size patch right in front of Ice House Landing, right like dead middle of the mat of water chestnut. And there is some natural die off going there to the south, but I think what also happened was when I cut that football field size, roughly football field size patch, it opened up, allowed the winds to affect the plant there. It opened up a little bit of interplay with the wind and the tide. And what I was trying to do is assist that patch of natural die off. Not quite sure why there's some natural die off there. I mean, the plant very well could have exhausted itself, exhausted whatever nutrients it needs to grow there. But that a lot of that is natural die off, but I have helped it a little bit by cutting the test patch, which is off this photograph to the north. This is basically the same place, Ice House Landing, with a slightly different view. We put a historic sign there at Ice House Landing last summer and planted a bunch of trees, which wasn't done yet at the time of this photograph. But you just see how much natural flow is restored there. And this is the channel going up to Lower Main Street. The parking lot I mentioned earlier, I took this photo from inside my house, and two fishermen just came in and hanging out in the parking lot fishing for an hour or two. It's Cheviot is really pretty special fishery. Nowadays, it's used during striper season, and in part the water chestnut here. That's what keeps people away in the summertime. However, there are some tournament bass fishermen and others who have gotten winds that we've been cutting here in Germantown, and they come down in the summertime because it's been closed off for most of a generation. So a lot of their colleagues that they're competing against in these bass tournaments that I don't even know to come down here in the summertime where they don't want to risk their boats in these weeds. But these guys had no problem just hanging out in the parking lot and fishing there. So this is a photograph from late June, early July, 2024. So this is the main channel in and out that Kai and Martin use to get their sailboats and others to use to get their sailboats out. This is the other end of, so this channel here replaced the previous channel. So Kai and I cut a long meandering channel that hewed closer to the shore. We abandoned that one in 2024 and cut this one instead. And as the summer went on, we made that a little bit more north-south. That looks pretty much perfectly northwest, or southeast northwest oriented. As the summer went on, we tried to make that a little bit more north-south, and that was to allow the flow to come in from low tide and high tide. This is Cheviot. I think we're into August now, 2024. You'll see the wind and the tides have really been helping us rip open Cheviot, essentially. The wind is always, it's pretty relentless down there at river level at times. And so I cut this, this is the parking lot, the intercoastal, the channel to get out at Cheviot, and then the Cheviot blowhole, affectionately known. And this channel out here, about mid-section of the causeway, that lines up with where one of the old bridges were in the causeway. So this, I think, lends some credence to the assertion made by some on the waterfront committee that the causeway itself, the remnants of the causeway, might be helping the water chestnut establish and maintain themselves here, because this flow lines up with the bridge. So there's nothing blocking the flow in line with that. I did not cut that. Nature itself did that. So I tend to think that that lends some credence to that theory that the causeway itself is really helping the water chestnuts stay established there. This is another view of Ice House Landing. This is before we planted most of the trees. There's a few bushes there that we planted last year. You see the historic sign about dead nettle there. And this is about getting towards August, September. And you can see just how wide that channel stayed right through summertime, and provides access now to the waterfront. The boat in the distance, that Kathy might remember the company. So that's part of a project where there's hydroelectric power coming down from Canada to New York City. And it is on land down to Smith's Landing, or Cementon, I should say. And when it gets down to Cementon, from that point south, it's buried in the mud on the bottom of the Hudson River. So this boat, which was out here on, highly visible to Kathy and I and everyone else who lives within view of it in August and September, and I think right up until ice came. This boat and other boats were burying cable in the mud down at the very bottom of the Hudson River. So out where that boat is, that's in the shipping channel. We're talking anywhere from 80 to 100, 120 feet deep. And that the mechanism on that boat buries the electric cable in the mud all the way that far down below the river. All right, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them. If you'd like to donate money to keep the cutter boat going, we always need gas money and maintenance money, because the boat is constantly under repair, seemingly. And it does take a lot of gas money to keep that thing going. Although we received a motor from the fire department, their surplus motor. And we also received some funds from the Germantown Park Commission to buy a new motor this season. So our boat should be much more fuel efficient this year and in coming years. However, it does take quite a bit of money to keep this operation going, even though all the human hours are volunteer, but nonetheless, it does take a good amount of money to keep the operation going. If you'd like to follow my work on Instagram or Facebook, it's at Germantown History. You can reach us at germantownhistory@gmail.com. The Park Commission's Instagram is around Germantown, and their website is germantownpc.org. And if you'd like to donate, you can do it there.
Selling the bags too.
Oh, yes, yeah. So the Waterfront Committee also has these water chestnut bags. Yeah, the sale of the bags, any proceeds we get from these goes towards the cutter boat. And those, any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Donald. Yeah. Is there anything on Zoom?
Checking.
Yeah.
I did get lunch. It says save me a bag.
Okay.
Super interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tom.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Will.
You can't see the water chestnuts coming up yet.
No, it'll be about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
Talking about something usually.
Well, yeah.